training camp's Thursday.
Yeah, this is because of the Hall of Fame game. The Texans, though the NFL has robbed us of that fourth preseason game, league-wide, the Texans get 4 preseason games this year because of the Hall of Fame game.
They get extra.
Thank you, Canton, Ohio.
Thank you, Andre Johnson. It's I would say probably the big reason that the Texans and the Bears are going to face off in the Hall of Fame game. So training camp Thursday. I was thinking about this coming back, like, okay, this is going to feel very, very different, this training camp, than the last few. Than even than last season, where last season felt way different than the previous two, the Culley and Lovey training camps. Now, this is now a training camp, Seth, where there's going to be, the NFL Network is going to be there, ESPN's going to be there. Like, this isn't just an intriguing team now. This is a really good football team to go along with the intrigue.
Yeah, we get to see all of those little network types out there on the sideline with their preening about in their little NFL polos. I don't know if NFL Network still exists or not, but as far as ESPN, they're firing everybody. Yeah. They're firing everybody as fast as they can.
It's weird.
Look, it's not that I'm going to miss their programming or anything, but there will be a lot of people from all the outlets and possibly NFL Network out there.
Yeah, it should be good. What's the thing you're most excited about Thursday?
Honestly, just the wide receivers and the defensive backs. Yeah. I think that's where you get to see more actual battles taking place, and they are positions of intrigue, obviously, because they're so loaded at wide receiver, and yet there's going to be fierce competition for those 4th and 5th spots.
Boy, will there.
John Mechie, just people him, and I think in the OTAs and minicamp he did look like a different guy. So I'm intrigued by him, and then Kamari Lassiter and Okudah and Henderson at cornerback. The battles that those guys will have with all these receivers should be really, really good stuff. Dude. I trust Derek. Like, Derek Stingley's going to have some really good battles with him, but I know what he can do. I just want to see these other guys.
Yeah, but I can't wait to see Stingley go against these guys. You know, you're right.
Yeah.
Like, bringing him up, that should be fun, man. That should be fun. My these are my 4 biggest ones that I'm excited to see, or that I think the biggest storylines for training camp. I'll count them in ascending order, I guess. Kenyon Green, what he looks like, and the battle at left guard for a couple of reasons. One, I'm still petty enough to where I need Kenyon Green to work out because he was a pick that came from the Deshaun Watson trade. I'm just wired that way. I'm sorry. But 2, as you've pointed out, one of the biggest Achilles heels on this team is the interior of the offensive line. If this left guard battle looks like one where you're like, man, I don't care who wins this, it looks like they've got some good competition there, and one of these guys is going to hold this down. That's a huge bucket of gravy right there for me. My expectations are not high for that position right now.
I think Kenyon Green and Kendrick Green both, I'm wide open to being impressed by. I think that Kendrick Green is in a better system now than he was in Pittsburgh for him personally. I think he's just better suited to this than the offense they were running when he was a rookie. And I think physiologically he looks more like a center. Maybe guard is his better position. And then I would lump center in with that battle too.
Yeah.
Center is a tricky position because it's really important that that guy has a relationship with the quarterback, that he gets the mental side of it down pat. So I think they're going to try as hard as they can to get Juice Scruggs up and going. But I think he is in competition with Patterson for that spot. So those 4 guys between Patterson, Scruggs, and the 2 Greens, and then, Ladarius Henderson as well, I think there's some genuine battling going on there.
Yeah, and that's one that we didn't really get to see in OTAs and minicamp because they don't wear pads. We'll get to see him hit at training camp. That'll be good. So that's 4. 3 for me is kind of ties in to what you were just talking about, the weapons. I know you were talking about the battles with the corners and the wide receivers. I'm just anxious to see just how all the weapons get assimilated. Does it look like a rusty kind of training camp early on with these guys, or is this a training camp where we're like, man, CJ's clicking with Stephon Diggs, Joe Mixon.
Yeah.
I can tell you just from being at the OTAs and minicamp, like Joe Mixon, like physically looks amazing, and he was doing all the things that you need to do at a padless minicamp to make you feel good about where he's at. But I think just getting the weapons assimilated and all the pieces kind of installed is something to watch for.
I think that Cade Stover is a big X factor, and I don't think he's going to be Rookie of the Year or anything like that. But if he, who already has a relationship with CJ in terms of being a friend to him, but also just already having a prior connection through Ohio State, and on an offense that, man, when executed properly, having 2 tight ends in this offense that are good receiving options can be really, really, really brutal. A lot of it comes down to how well Cade Stover ends up blocking. Because if he can be a blocking threat, he's only played the position full time for 2 years. That could really unlock a lot of things too, as well as be a compliment to those 3 wide receivers.
What was Diggs doing on Instagram yesterday?
He put out, as far as I could tell, it looked like a highly produced video of him working out with CJ Stroud.
Oh, I love this.
Yeah.
Oh, man. It's going to be good, man. It's going to be good.
I couldn't swear. I had bookmarked it and then forgot to watch the whole thing. He looked like Stephon Diggs.
Yeah.
I'm not worried one bit about Stephon Diggs athletically. I think a lot of people that just do box score analysis on it thought that it was somehow age-related, that he started off on pace for 1,600 yards in that season and then dropped off in the last third of the season. It really, really wasn't. It was a brand-new offensive coordinator. They were doing a lot of different things, and Diggs was used differently, but he was still getting open.
Yeah.
So athletically, I mean, he'll drop off athletically a little bit every year because of his age, but I don't think it's going to be a Jose Abreu type of drop.
Amy, when we were driving in the car while we were on vacation and all the hurricane stuff was going on back here, after she made sure to check on her parents, check on her close friends, teachers at the school, things like that. You like checking social media and just because Stephon, he was having trouble getting around Houston early on during his time here, just pure like traffic stuff. Like a hurricane is a big wake up call for guys that have never spent time in Houston before.
That's a good point, Sean, because Stephon Diggs first adjusted to the potholes.
Right.
You gotta be careful with those low profile tires when you're in Houston. That's one thing a lot of professional athletes learn early on. Like you listen to the songs and you want to be rolling on some nice wheels and everything, but you got to be careful, man.
Yes.
You gotta go very Look, those were back in the days of lean, where if you were rolling slow,
yes.
Okay? Very carefully. Now you just got to be careful out there with the potholes, and yes, the hurricanes as well.
And the hurricanes as well.
We don't know if Stephon was actually in town for the hurricanes, so maybe so far so good. He doesn't even have a clue about how bad it can be.
Yeah, I'm looking at his Twitter, and it doesn't look like
he tweeted out something like "Stay hungry" or something.
He tweeted out 3 days ago. He tweeted out "Must remain focused."
Focused, yeah.
And then later that day, tweeted "God be my source."
Okay, this is where
source.
So the stay focused part. Yeah. This is the thing that I think a lot of people feel but don't want to really believe it. I'm going to tell you this right now. Stephon Diggs, in a lot of ways, can be the absolute best thing for this young locker room because he was on a team in Buffalo for the last several years that was as a team that's knocking on the door and it's their turn next. The Texans are that team now. So I think in terms of the old dude that's annoyingly telling the rookies, like, hey, man, stay focused. Don't let all this outside noise get to you. I think Stephon Diggs is actually the perfect deliverer of that message.
That's a great point.
Some people would call that a messenger.
That's right. That's right.
The person who delivers a message.
The person who delivers a message is a messenger, yes.
Yes.
Number 2 for me, big training camp storylines, just the kind of what I alluded to coming into the segment, like the look and the feel. Like there's so much excitement and energy and hope right now with the Texans, and it's going to translate some kind of way at training camp, whether it's with bigger crowds, whether it's a different vibe around the team, whether it's I'm very anxious to see how this whole thing feels. We haven't had a training camp like this since the Kubiak era, I don't think.
Right. Yeah, and I think that if I think back to my conversations I had with fans last year, there were 2 main emotions. One was a cautious optimism, but still some kind of trepidation over the previous couple of years. But then also, remember this time last year, a lot of people were skeptical of Nick Caserio still. And for many reasons, I think. And one of them was that they didn't feel like that he was genuinely going to let D'Amico make this his team. And I understand why people felt that way, because they'd just gone through 2 years where, frankly, they had a bridge coach in place in each of those years. At the last moment, and there was a lot of wait and see. And I think this year, I think that's all been erased. I think Nick Caserio is as well liked as he's ever been in this city, and I don't think anybody has any question about whether he and D'Amico have a good, productive working relationship.
No, and it's not even that we have clarity on what the relationship is. It's that it's even better than I think the average fan could have imagined it would have been. It's that good. Number one for me among storylines is like, this is CJ's team now. Like, CJ, he owns the place now. Last year, this time, the question was, is he going to be the starting quarterback week 1? And now we're 12 months later, and the question is, could he be the MVP of the league this year? Like, that's how big a difference there. It's not, okay, here's CJ's reps, and now here's Case's reps, and now here's Davis's reps, and now we go ask D'Amico if CJ's the starter, lather, rinse, repeat, and we do this for 15 straight practices or whatever it is before he gets named. Like, this is CJ's team now. You know?
I think the biggest thing, like, aside from CJ's core personality being one that, hey, he consciously tries to keep a certain level of humility about him, you know, and understands that he still has a lot to learn and all of that. But then you add to that, the arc of his rookie season was one in which it was a slow build as he just kind of methodically kept learning about the NFL and learning the offense better, and by the end of the season was operating like a veteran NFL quarterback. Sometimes when a rookie campaign, a lot of times these days it's because he's super athletic, and that was not CJ's experience, you know, and a lot of the other time too, it's because he's playing on a team that has like a really, really good defense and also a really good rushing attack on offense to support him. CJ didn't have any of those things, and he doesn't have the athleticism. That's not his calling card. You know, he's just fine as an athlete by modern quarterback standards, but that wasn't what made him good as a rookie. Sometimes those guys, I think, don't quite understand how hard it's going to get to be the second year. Like, they don't, and you know, as a coach, sometimes when you've got an athletic quarterback, you're kind of like, you're trying to tell him, like, okay, hey, that's cool, man, but listen, we got to keep working on not using your legs to bail you out of things. So he's going to be facing a lot of new challenges because the opponents have had 6 months to work on whatever perceived weaknesses they saw or whatever areas of opportunity they have. CJ understands and gets all that, and I don't think he's in danger of a sophomore slump.
I don't either. And you add in the fact that I'm not saying it's a guarantee or anything that each aspect of the offense, non-CJ aspect, is going to be better in 2024 than it was in 2023. But I think if I had to, I think that the betting favorite is that each of the, wide receiver is going to be better. You went and got Stephon Diggs.
Yeah.
I think tight end is going to be better. You know, you get Dalton Schultz in year 2 and you add Kate Stover to that mix to go with Brevin Jordan. I think the offensive line, if it's healthy, is going to be at least better than it was early on last year for CJ. And then running back, you've got Joe Singletary and, you know, whatever Damian Pierce was struggling with last year. So CJ, I think, is going to be better just because he's wired that way. The schedule's a little harder, but they've done a really good job of setting him up for success, I think, in year 2.